Namaste Dosto! Welcome to Desified Dish. My name is Reiko. So listen, I'm going to be going to a picnic for illustrators and I wanted to bring along a treat to share with the members. And so I thought it was the perfect opportunity to share my Gooey brownie recipe with you all. This one is a classic. I used to make it for my training groups all the time, so I could probably make it in my sleep. But it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's extremely decadent. So, cello, let's cue the music and get to baking. So to begin with, in my mixing bowl, I've got 225 grams of unsalted butter. For this, I'm going to add dark cooking chocolate. This is 45% cocoa solids. I think I'll need a little bit more. In the end, I added 225 grams, which is about a block and a couple of lines. Or maybe that should be rows. Yes, rows of cooking chocolate. Now let's slap down the spoon rest, and I'm going to get my favorite tool for this job, a little yellow spatula. So I'm going to shove my mixing bowl into the microwave and, watch the roof there, Reiko. And microwave on the melt chocolate setting for 200 grams. If your microwave doesn't have this fancy setting, I recommend 30-second intervals. Give it a stir and then keep going until it's melted. As you can see, the butter is mostly melted, but the chocolate is still relatively solid, so I'm going to have to stick it back in the microwave. But first things first, I'm just going to give it a decent stir. Looking much better now, but there are still a few solids here, so I'm going to end up putting it back in the microwave for a third time. The main thing here is to be careful not to go too crazy and end up burning the chocolate, so always do it at smaller intervals. And now that's looking perfectly smooth, so let's move on. Now I'm going to prepare my baking tin, so I'm going to rip off a piece of baking paper that'll be big enough to fit the bottom. So I'm going to place that down on my bench top, place down my baking tin. This is a 24cm square pan with a lift out bottom, which just makes it so much easier to get out when it's baked. Then using a pencil, I'm just going to trace around the outside of my pan. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. And now over to the sink, I'm going to grab my spray canola oil and spray my pan. I'm mainly focusing on the sides and particularly the corners, not so much the bottom because we're going to have our baking paper there. Now we're going to fit the baking paper into the bottom of the pan. If you've done this right, it should fit like a glove. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the brownie. So let's go to our oven and preheat fan force to 150 degrees Celsius. Back to our melted butter and chocolate, I'm going to add 1 cup of caster sugar and then measure out 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence. Then we'll give everything a real good mix until it's thoroughly combined. Next, I'm going to add 3 whole eggs. I've recently been practicing cracking them open on a flat surface as opposed to using the edge of a bowl. Let's just say the technique still needs some work. The other 2 eggs were a vast improvement. One day I hope to get to one-handed breaks. It's good to have goals. Mix in the eggs until well combined. Now bring in the almond meal or flour. This is 150 grams worth. As always, mix thoroughly until combined. One of the things I love about using almond meal over flour is that it just makes such a beautifully moist brownie. As an extra bonus, it's also gluten-free, so win-win in my book. Lastly, we'll move this batter into double chocolate territory by adding white chocolate bits. This is a whole bag or 200 grams that I'm adding. These won't melt during the cooking process, so they'll be nice and chunky by the end. Mix them in good to make sure they're evenly distributed throughout the batter. And that's our brownie batter, ready to go. Doesn't it look so good? And now using my spatula, I'm going to turn out the mixture into my pre-prepared pan. And now using my spatula, I'm going to spread the mixture around the pan and try and get it as flat as possible. This can definitely take a little bit of time to get right, but if it's not perfect, don't worry. So I'm going to pop this in my preheated oven for 25 to 30 minutes. And do please enjoy the time lapse. Alright, let's put on an oven gloves and get this hot brownie out of the oven. But first I better just check how done it is. So I'm going to take out my cake tester, I know it's a very large skewer, and just check. If it's a little bit liquidy, that's quite okay. Unlike a normal cake, we're not really looking for something that's completely done here. It passed the test, so let's take it out and pop it on top of the hot plates for now for it to cool a little bit. Once the pan is cooled down enough that you can touch it with your bare hands, I'm going to go ahead and take it out. Now because I have a lift out bottom, I'm actually going to use this stack of bowls to just push the bottom of the pan out so it's easy to grab at. Then using a rigid cutting board, I'm going to flip the brownie over. Now I'm just going to carefully remove the baking paper and the base plate. It's a delicate operation as the bottom of the brownie is still quite moist and soft. Phew, got it off in one piece. Now I'm just going to leave the brownie to cool and set completely. Now using a second rigid cutting board, I'm going to flip it over one more time. Ta-da! This last step is completely optional, but I'm just going to sprinkle some icing sugar on the top. Alright, now of course I'm not going to eat the brownie like this, so let's cut it a little bit smaller. I'm using a nice long knife here, but I'm going to be leading with the edge of the blade because the insides of this are still going to be really soft while the outside is slightly crispy. As you go, I recommend washing off the excess bits of brownie mixture stuck to the blade so you keep getting clean cuts. I divided it into 4 and then cut each quarter into 9 pieces. Now feel free to cut whichever size you like. It will crumble a little bit, but that's just the nature of this beautiful brownie. Here, have a closer look. Store it in an airtight container lined with baking paper for about a week. My favorite accompaniment to this decadent dish is a pot of black tea. I usually go for Earl Grey cream. Alright, we're back and the baking is done. So I present to you the chocolate brownie. Oh, and it has such a wonderful chocolatey aroma to it. So this one's actually got 2 different kinds of chocolate. It's essentially a double chocolate brownie, if you will. So apart from the chocolate in the actual brownie batter itself, it also has white chocolate bits in there as well. So very decadent, very chocolatey. And one of the best things about it is that it's gluten-free. So it's really, really soft and gooey. I find that flour tends to dry out a little bit more, but the almond meal does an amazing job of keeping the brownie moist and just delicious. So let's go ahead and give it a try, shall we? Oh, so rich, so chocolatey, perfect consistency, slightly crispy on the top, and if you're eating a side piece then obviously that's also going to be more crispy, but like the inside is so beautiful. And you know the best thing about this brownie recipe, and one of the reasons why I wanted to actually share this one to begin with, this is essentially the basic recipe, but one of the things I love about this is it's a great base to experiment with different flavors. So on the channel, you're going to be seeing a lot of different brownie recipes. Now that I've made the basic one, I want to just show you what else you can do with the recipe. So expect to see some other options and definitely some more Desi options as well. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And if you want to catch what dishes I get up to next time, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching Dosto, and Fir Melange, I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.